All right, Joey. So I just introduced you. I want to jump right into it. Everybody who sees this already knows who you are, already knows who Robbie is. So what are you guys doing? Just kind of give me the overview and then we'll get into the specifics.
Yeah, so short and sweet is we were working with clinics really from startup all the way to I think our biggest has 15 clinics. And so what we found was that there's either people that are bigger that are stuck in contracts, or there's smaller guys that like if you're smaller, if you have money, you should probably just be spending it on hiring or marketing. And so when we started to look at like who got the best results and all that type of stuff with our program, I was like, there's got to be something going on. Because like when we saw once someone has owner, admin, PT, and doing about $30,000 a month in revenue, when they come into our program, they just double, triple, quadruple, like they blow up. But the smaller guys, they were having a little bit harder time because I think it's like, hey, some of them are partially in, they haven't done everything, they don't have the referral sources, they don't have the sales process, all this type stuff. And so I was like, well, how can we serve both of these populations? And so what we're now doing is we're giving away what was around over a $10,000 a year program. So we're giving away like there's like 400 training videos on sales, workshops, starting your practice, doing mobile, doing subleasing, opening a location, like you name it is probably in there. And we're doing that with 2 coaching calls a week. So that way, anybody, whether they're bigger and stuck in a contract or they're smaller and just want to grow to be big enough to work with us, or even if they have no aspirations of working with us, we just want to make the bar for someone to be able to open and be successful with practice pretty much be eliminated. Because the other options right now is like you go and you either try it yourself and you pay for a program. It's just more so through trial and error because it takes longer and you mess stuff up, or you go to someone else, and a lot of those are locking people into like $8,000 contracts for 90 days and then a $1,500 a month on the back end. And I'm like, most people, again, they need to have marketing, they need to have hiring, but they still need some coaching. And so this allowed us to kind of split out our coaching and split out our marketing to where one, we can have some more affordable marketing options. So then you have more money for ad spend or hiring and stuff like that. But then you still have all the resources you need on the coaching side. So this is literally like a full-blown free mastermind, whether you pay us ever in the future or not, like you have access to this. So that way, honestly, because I think the only way we can improve the profession, period, is for people who actually give a crap to be able to open their own practice. And if there's a barrier or even a paywall between that, I think there will always be friction in us improving stuff. And so
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to give it away. Anybody who maybe wants to work with us in the future that's big enough, they can. And then long term, and not a lot of people know this, we're opening clinics too. Because again, like I think that's the only way we can improve the profession. And so
Wow.
that's kind of the whole reason why we're doing all this is because just we had so many people who needed it, but either they couldn't afford it, they weren't quite sure, they wanted to test it out, they were locked in a contract. So it's a lot. It's a very comprehensive, like anything you need is in there. So I know that was a long rant, but that's it in a nutshell.
So for people that are listening, you keep saying if you're locked in a contract. My first thought was, what is he talking about? You're talking about if you're in a contract with a coach or an
Mhm.
education company.
Yeah, it's either that or a marketing company. There's a lot of companies right now are doing 12 and 18-month contracts right now for anybody that works with them. And
Wow.
then what we were finding, which I'm not against contracts, but it's more so that people were in contracts, they weren't getting the solution to what they wanted. They're still hopping on sales calls with me to try to do something. They're 100% on board, but they're like, but I have to wait for this contract to end. And so I would literally have someone who signed a contract 2 months later come hop on a call with us. And then they're like, well, I would love to do this, but I got to wait 10 months and let my business not be where it needs to. And so if someone is stuck in that contract, it's like, cool, come use our stuff because
Yeah.
it's 100% free. You have any access to it. And then if you decide later after your contract is done, cool, come work with us. If not, cool. Like it doesn't change my day whether someone uses it or not, but I
Right.
want there to be zero friction for that. So that way anybody has access to it. Because I think that that's the biggest thing we can do for changing the profession is just making any education on how to run it right freely accessible to everybody.
So I want you to go through like what the educational elements are that you guys are covering. But I think it's funny. Yesterday, I get to talk to a lot of therapists. Mostly the people that I talk to are on the cusp. They've been a therapist for a long time. They're thinking about making the switch. They don't know what to do, how to even approach it. And this particular therapist yesterday, she had been a 20-year therapist. She loves yoga and alternative kind of exercise modes. And she had said, and I had no idea. I'm not in this world. She was like, yeah, other coaching programs I was looking at, they were $8,000 programs, and I don't know that I'm ready to make that kind of commitment.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. And then for you to say there's contracts in there, I mean, again, I had no idea. I don't live in
Yeah.
that world.
Yeah.
So what you guys are doing, you and Robbie, you tell me the name of the program, which is Rehab CEOs, but go ahead and mention it. And then kind of give us the overview of what kind of information are you guys covering?
Yeah, so RehabCEOs is the company. The essentially the free community that we're doing, we're calling it Practice Success Academy. Our paid program is Practice Legacy, but Practice Success Academy is where we have all of this type stuff. And like I said, it's for startups, but it's also for bigger guys that like needed to have better sales process. They need to know how to do workshops. So as far as what we do, we kind of give a good overview of like one, there's a lot of people out there that are telling you like if you take insurance, all of a sudden you don't care about your patient somehow and all this type stuff. So it's like really the destination matters more than the vehicle. So like we work with all cash guys that are doing seven figures. We work with all insurance guys that are doing multi seven figures. And so we want people to realize like any model can work. You just have to figure out what you actually want out of the model. And so we have literally everything down to like how to pick your niche, how to create your EIN, how to get your bank account, how to like do everything you need. And then kind of the best option of like, do you want to start as mobile? Do you want to have a sublease location? Do you want to get a loan out and actually have your own location? The pros and cons of it when you make the transition to one versus the other. So it's all of that type stuff along with sales, along with marketing, along with how to price yourself, along with the best EMRs, like anything that you would need to start a practice, continue to improve your sales process, continue to improve your marketing. And then for a lot of people, there's a lot of kind of this imposter syndrome because you don't inherently know where you are. So we've got like 40 videos on everything with mindset, figuring out why you want to do it, if it's the right fit for you to do it. So there's a lot of stuff in here, and it's hard for me to like wrap it all into one thing because it's got stuff on hiring your PT, hiring an admin, doing all that because again, our goal is to grow someone as fast as possible to our threshold of owner, admin, PT, and $30,000 a month in revenue. Like I'm very transparent. Like I'm a capitalist. I'm here to make money, but I'm okay that happening in 2 to 3 years from now.
Right.
And so we want anybody who wants to grow to have the options. And then that way you've got even all your foundational stuff of like mission, vision, core values, like all that type stuff that like none of us were taught in PT school. Like my PT school, like our pretty much business class was like, hey, open up a clinic and physicians will refer because that's what
Yeah.
happened 20 years ago when I had my clinic. And I'm like, that's not really how things are. And so we've got all kinds of, I mean, we've got all your initial forms and policies and all of that type stuff that you would really need for starting up. But like I said, even the sales process stuff that we have, we've got guys that have been in business for 20 years who are implementing our sales process that like it'll be night and day difference between any of that. And it works for cash or it works for insurance. And so we've built all of our stuff to where it's kind of, there's the word agnostic. It's where like it doesn't matter what
Right.
model you are.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you've been in business for 20 years. It doesn't matter if you're mobile because we worked with everybody. We're working with roughly 220 clinics right now. So we've seen what works and what doesn't. And so that's what a lot of our focus is. But then we know that, of course, there's the video stuff. And then there's a little community. It's like a little private Facebook community, but without all the Facebook groups on there that are telling you that the profession's dying and everything like that. We try to keep it positive and everything like that. But then the 2 coaching calls a week is nice because you've got videos, you have your specific scenarios, but some stuff is just easier to ask on video because like
Yeah.
to write it out and actually give enough context is sometimes tough. And so that's why we still decided to do the 2 coaching calls a week, which like most of your like masterminds and coaching programs, like that's their whole paid program.
Yeah.
And so we're doing that because I mean, one, selfishly, we do get to use that for content. So like I say, I'm always very transparent on why we do
Yeah.
stuff. Like I can repurpose that for content, but we can actually solve your issues because again, if we solve your issues and help you make more money, it's very logical that if we can provide enough value on the front end, you may want to work with us on the back end.
Right.
And so that way, any questions you have, and you kind of get the both sides of things, because I'm very marketing and sales focused. Robbie, I mean, he went from 1 to 3 clinics and 1.7 million in revenue in 18 months. And he's been coaching for like 6 years. He's a freak. Like let's be real. He's a freak. And so he's very good at hiring, marketing, system, sales, like everything. But you get both of those so that way you can kind of learn from everything and just have as many options as you possibly can to continue to grow with wherever you are in your business without worrying about like, all right, can I make this commitment for 12 months? Or someone like you're talking about who's trying to make the transition, it's like, if you've got $8,000, that should be either spent on ads or
Yeah.
just like being okay taking the risk because you already should have some type of strike number and some type of reserve before you try to go all in with the business. Otherwise, you're going to have a slow period. You're going to freak out and you're going to go back to being a staff PT, even though you don't want to be a staff PT. And
Right.
so we've got a lot of that stuff. But even for someone who thinks they want to start a business, we've got a section in here that's around be, do, have. It's a different kind of thought process and principle that we have. And we kind of tweaked it based on our stuff. We've probably had 7 people go through that so far. And then later on tell us after I went through everything there, I realized I don't actually want to run a business because I realize what it takes. And so even if that's all it does for someone to where they save years of realizing like, hey, this isn't actually what I want, that in itself is a win for me.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot that can help people just no matter where they are in their journey.
You know, the thing I love about it, this is a philosophy that's been around a long time. I think the first person I heard say this was Ramit Sethi, and he said, "My free stuff is better than most people's paid stuff."
Yeah.
And this whole idea that, look, once I've recorded this content, I've created it, it'll elevate everybody to a level that we can then start to have a serious communication. You know, and it's no different than being a physical therapist in the clinic treating a patient. The things that I do for a total knee replacement are pretty much the same thing. Like there's foundational things that everybody who's had a knee replacement needs to do. There's no reason why I need to charge everybody for those basic things. They just need to be learned and done. And then when we go to the next level, that's where we switch from, you know, rudimentary stuff to performance-based stuff, and that's where you guys come in.
Yeah.
Now, for everybody watching, a couple months ago, Joey showed me some of those modules, some of the things that they've created that Robbie specifically created. And I told Joey, honestly, I was like, look, when I started my practice, for context, started in 2001 as a personal training studio, I was not a physical therapist. 2002, I had a physical therapist come in. We made the transition from all personal training to all physical therapy. 2003, we pretty much eliminated everything, went all in network with all the third party payers. We blew up. We were doing 300,000-400,000 in revenue, but we had no idea what we were doing, how to run a business. We had no organization. We had nothing. We were doing everything. And so at that time, we spent like $30,000. We went through a coaching program. We spent a week on site and we literally just sat down doing the most basic stuff: how to create an organizational chart, how to identify everything that needs to be done, you know, every hat in the organization, laying out procedures, laying out policies. But that was the transformation that we needed to make to then take that to $1 million in revenue, grow to 5 locations, build a team. And so when I had done that, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to teach this to other therapists. This is, you know, a passion of mine. But then when I saw what you guys created, I was like, this is what I wanted to do. There's no sense in me doing it again. And I'm certainly not going to do it as well as you guys had already done it. And I'm certainly not going to give it away for free if I do put in the work to do it. You guys have monetized that in different ways, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
And so just so I can kind of make sure people understand, it's a free program.
Hmm.
It's a combination of pre-recorded videos so that if I'm like struggling with a certain element of my business, I can go in, I can find the module, do the training on that. It's all self-paced. I do it when I want, how I want. But then you guys also have the coaching calls that's either you or Robbie. Is that right?
Hmm. Yep.
And I mean, there's no obligation. People can quit or
No.
drop out anytime they want. It's
Yeah.
just a resource there that's specifically targeted to helping kind of new or existing practice owners improve their business.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's about 400 videos that we have in there, all self-paced. The only thing that you technically have to even give us is an email because that's how you create a login to the software.
Right.
So like outside of that, there's no commitment, there's no anything. You don't have to attend the calls if you want to. I mean, I highly recommend it. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. If you don't want to
Wow.
post in the group, you don't have to. So it is very self-paced, anything that you want. And then if you're at a point where later on you're like, hey, I do want some extra help. I do want more one-on-one customization. I do want more done for you marketing. We can always have a conversation, but that is not a stipulation to utilize any of this. Long term, we're going to be releasing all of these videos over YouTube too. So it's going to be freely accessible there. We're just starting here because it was already a behemoth of a project.
Yeah.
So it's going to be freely accessible everywhere. Our goal is to just make it to where anybody who needs help can find it in any form that they want. Because some people want video, some people like audio, some people like written. And so there's a lot of stuff that we've got coming out in the future, and there's still more trainings that we're actually still filming for this. But within here, there's, I think, 15 courses in itself. So they're like courses either based on your level that you're at or based on a specific solution that you're or problem that you're trying to solve. And that way, it's just anybody who wants it comes in. I want to work with people who want to win. And so it's going to also self-select the people that implement for us, which would make, of course, make even better clients for us.
Yeah.
And so our goal is just people who want access to that can do it. There's going to be some people who they never want to get as big as what our criteria is to work on the paid coaching. But if they didn't come in and get that help, they would always kind of struggle.
Yeah.
So like those people, we may never work with in a paid capacity, and that's fine. But then the people that really want to grow big, because that's what we love, is growing really, really big clinics. And like that's what we want to do. And that doesn't matter if you're cash, that doesn't matter if you're insurance, like it doesn't matter if anything. Like we don't care about all that stuff. We just want to help people who want to win bigger. Like that's
Awesome.
really the goal.
So I do have a question for you separate from this, but before we hit that question, full disclosure for everybody watching, while you and I have been an affiliate for you guys in the past, this is not an affiliate program. You're not going to get cookied. I'm not getting any compensation. Joey didn't even ask me to do this. I reached out to him because this is something that I wanted to offer to all of the people who take my zero to paid course. And I'm like, I'll just put it out to my Medicare billing group and anywhere I can, because I really think this is genuine value. So I have no financial incentive for any of you to sign up for any of Joey's stuff. I just think it's genuinely good stuff. Okay. That being said, while I've got you on the call, so I love dissenting voices. I love people that go against the stream. Everywhere you look right now on social media, it's all about how terrible the profession's doing, how awful physical therapy business is. I have been guilty myself of saying that the profession is not going in the right direction. You are a positive voice. You are swimming upstream. So tell me a little bit about kind of why you see things so differently, why you're so optimistic about what therapists can do in therapy as a business.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to focus on the negative. And I think people have been in such a place of lack for so long that it's so close to their face, they can't see behind it. And so since a lot of your marketers do prey on the negative side of things, that's the loudest voice right now. And so most of the guys, if you think about it, that are the big prominent figures within the marketing world, they're almost all anti-insurance because they sell cash coaching.
Right.
So it would make sense that they would throw it under the table. And then there's some of you that are probably taking insurance. They're like, but Joey, average reimbursement is going down. And I'm like, yes, Medicare made a cut, but then they also gave you RTMs, which actually get you more money than what they cut. But everybody's so focused on the cuts that they don't implement the thing that they added that actually gives you more money than what they cut. And so what I've seen is the people that are actually set up properly, like, because there's some people that they'll try to fight math and it's like, I've got $60 average reimbursement, but I want to see people 60-minute one-on-one. Like, you'll literally never make that work. Like,
Right.
math doesn't lie. Does that mean you have to stack people 3 or 4 on top of each other? No. And so I think a lot of people extrapolate what they see the very big chain clinics that have institutional investors do because they only care about money to being the only way insurance can actually work. And so when we see it, like the most volume we ever see in any of our clinics, and this is like the all-in network, like New York, Florida, stuff like that, is like every 30 minutes someone comes in. That's the highest volume we've ever seen in any of our clinics. Outside of that, good majority of ours, they see 12 people a day. That's it. If you're cash based or maybe even hybrid, you can still do 60 minutes one-on-one as long as you're above 140 average reimbursement. And so I think knowing and seeing all these clinics and seeing the back end of like how they're able to be successful. And we've had clinics, we just had someone who was on an annual planning call, 3 clinics, been in business for 25 years, was ready to sell. We've worked with him for a year now. And the words came out of his mouth that I'm actually excited to be an owner again.
Yeah.
And I think the people that are not excited is because they don't know how to run a business. They're not set up properly. And so they're so focused on like how hard things are that they don't get to see the upside. And
Right.
so when we see that we can realistically set anybody up only being 86% full, because 14% is the national no-show cancellation rate, you can have 20% profit, 10% opportunity reserve, and a 5% tax reserve across the board as long as you're set up. And so when we see that, like we just had another annual planning call with someone, next year they're projected to make 1.4 million in profit.
Wow.
That doesn't sound like the profession is dying to me. That sounds
Right.
like people are focused on the wrong things. And again, they're not stacking 4 people on top of each other. They're not doing crazy stuff, and they're still actually getting people better. And I think people are just so focused on the hospital systems are ruining this, the hospital systems are doing that. Oh, I can't do this. The insurance reimbursements are going down. It's like, if they're too low, learn how to sell. Don't take that insurance. Like there's always a solution to it. So it's much easier to focus on the problem versus like, okay, well, that's the problem. Are we just going to accept that and just like bleed into the ground? No. And so like seeing the clinics that are like hundreds of clinics and these big chains and seeing how poorly they've done it, I just see opportunity. Like there's only more people getting into more back pain.
Yeah.
Our demographics of people who are aging is only getting more. 20,000 people left the profession during COVID. So there is actually a shortage right now. Like Robbie's wife just had her knee surgery done. It was 4 weeks before they could even get her in anywhere in her entire city. And so if there's that much demand, raising demand, there's not enough people to provide it. All I see is a market that has a lot of potential to make money if you know what you're actually doing. And when you make money in physical therapy, that means you're helping people. It's okay to make money.
Yeah.
And I think there's just so much opportunity. That's why I'm like, we're opening clinics. Like we're having to coach people to do the changes we want. And like eventually some of them do it and then not all of them do it. And I'm like, if they can make that much change in their business in 1 year, imagine if that's ours.
Right.
And so like there's just so much within the profession and it's like such a good profession. I think there's a lot that needs to be changed on the education side and the cost and all of that type stuff. And I think that there's ways that that can happen over time. And I've got ideas. We can maybe get into that later. But I think that there's a lot of things that people are not focusing on because it's easier to complain.
Yeah,
But I think the
I
other,
totally agree. I think the people that are successful in private practice right now are so successful and busy, they're not wasting time
yeah,
complaining on social media. That's why you don't hear about them, but it's the people that are angry and frustrated and they want to vent and they want to get all this stuff off their chest. You get all the toxicity, but that is not reflective of what's really going on. And just as I said earlier, I get to talk to a lot of clinicians and practice owners. There are some amazing practice owners doing
yeah,
amazing things, growing like crazy, building their team, which is the only other question I need to ask you, because everybody across social media right now will say there's a staffing shortage. Of course, the employed therapists will say there's an overabundance of therapists and we can't negotiate higher rates. But most practice owners will say, we can't find clinicians, we can't hire therapists. You guys are the only ones, you and Robbie are saying, hey, we've got a system, we're finding therapists, we're putting them in great jobs. What are you guys doing that's so different than what everybody else is doing?
yeah, I think there's a lot to, and I will say there are some areas that are hard right now. Like let's be real, there are some there, but we've staffed over 100 PTs in the last year. And really we haven't had to do anything too crazy on that. I think people just don't inherently understand there's 3 buckets of PTs. There's new grads who want some type of mentorship and or student loan repayment and or both. There's the person who's probably been run through the ringer and they've seen way too much volume and they don't want to see as much and they're kind of burnt out and frustrated. And then there's the person that's looking for leadership. And so if your ad tries to talk to all of them at the same time, you're talking to no one. And so I think if you can have some of those things in place to where your actual stuff, I mean, it's all marketing. Like we're all going back to like, what's the offer? What's the marketing? It's the same stuff we focus on to actually grow the clinics, but we
Right.
need to do that on the hiring side. And so looking at that, looking at a competitive analysis of your area, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, because yeah, there's some people who you want to offer $90,000 and all these benefits and a sign-on bonus because that's what the hospital system's doing next to you. But there's also a lot of people who don't want to have to deal with all this stuff at the hospital system. So you have to find out what's important to that person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest thing is we can focus on the culture to where people actually want to show up. We can make it to where people have a solid offer. We actually understand how to interview people. So we find out what's important to them because the amount of people that I know would take a $10,000 to $20,000 pay cut to actually enjoy where they work is through the roof. Like
Right.
if you're looking at new grads right now, 99% of those care way more about actually enjoying work and some type of flexibility than they do about the actual earnings potential. And so I think if you really understand the psychology of what people want, that will go significantly further than any random tactic or anything like that. Of course, like you can do outbound, you can do Google ads, you can do Facebook ads, you can do all that stuff to try to get more recruits and stuff like that. But there's even just simple stuff of like half the people that say they can't find a PT, there's a college right next to them they haven't set up in a student affiliate with.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. But it's easier to say I can't find someone versus admitting the fact that like maybe you don't want to find someone because maybe you don't think that where you are is good enough for someone to come work.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think a lot of people are so beat up that it's hard to be inspired by them or someone. The other common thing is someone's happy having 1 to 2 PTs, and then they wonder why when they get to 1 to 2 PTs, things start to go back down because if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you don't have a big enough vision for someone to fit their career inside of it, why would I come work for you? And
Yeah.
so having an actual escalation plan of like how people can grow with your company as well. But if you try to sell someone on like, hey, you can actually open up a clinic with us and be a partner, you can do this, and then they actually like walk in and there's no energy. You don't really want to grow past 2 PTs. You're beat up by the insurance companies. You got all this stuff. It's like they don't even believe it. So like if you don't believe it can happen, how could they?
Yeah,
So
belief and mindset is just so powerful. I hate all the airy fairy stuff, but I have to acknowledge the reality. It's the people you surround yourself with, and going back to the program that you and Robbie are doing. I mean, I think even if like you watching, people watching this think, "Oh, I know all that. I've already done all that. I've been through the executive training program, blah blah blah." It's not even just that. It's about seeing other people that are being successful in ways that you want to be successful, realizing that there are voices out there, even though they're small slivers of the profession, but they are out there who are like, yeah, we can do this. I've done this. I know people who do this. I mean, you and I have been talking for years now, and there's still frequent times where you will tell me something and I'm like, seriously, somebody is actually doing that? And it's just if I don't have exposure to it, then all I see is the negativity. I mean, that's why in my house we don't watch the news anymore. We don't do a lot of those things because there's no benefit to that. I
yeah.
want people in my life that are moving in the direction that I want to move in. I want people that are in front of me. I want people that are behind me that I can help come along. So that being said, let's wrap it up. What is going to be the best way for people to join the program? I'm sure there's links. I'll put them in the description, but what do you say?
I wasn't prepared for this actually. So it's school.com/rehab dash, good Lord, I'm just gonna have to put it on there.
Just send me the link and I'll put it in the description.
I was not ready. And what we'll do is we'll throw it. So rehabceos.com/media is all of our other media. I'll get them to throw a link on there too, in case for some reason you can't find the link that you have. We'll throw it on there
Perfect.
so people can join the community and everything like that. So
And so,
rehabceos.com and you'll be able to find it.
and you have the Facebook group.
Mhm.
Okay. You have the YouTube channel, which has been amazing. Like watching the content that you and Robbie are putting out there is awesome. Any other like outlets? You guys are on LinkedIn?
We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. We're going to be podcast in January. So pretty much you name it, we're going to be on it, on
Wow.
probably multiple profiles. And so that's, I mean, really like literally anywhere. YouTube, probably Q2, we'll probably be putting out some type of long form, probably once a day.
Yeah.
It's going to get to where like, if you want some type of help, like you can't say you don't have it anymore. You're just not looking.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say you literally have to work
Yeah.
harder to be a failure in this, and not run into the content.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up here, Joey. That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing the information, and I will put those links down in the description of the video.
All right. Thanks for having me, brother.